higher authority than the secular principles here. So there are certain elements which are often presented which I think we would have problems with. So the notion that there would be a common culture and common values for all peoples, I think, is not realistic at all, and it should not be what we are looking for in this country.
Let me bring in Norman Lamont again.
Well, I rather disagree with the last point, and I agree with what the gentleman on the front row said. And to me, from what I know of it, the values of Islam are similar to the values of democracy. I think the history of Islam shows that Islam can accept, for example, religious pluralism. And it was the Quranic doctrine to hold other prophets in equal esteem, equal to the prophet himself. So I think what you said is absolutely right, and we do have shared values, and I think the values of democracy are very similar to the values, the fundamental values of Islam. I say that because there is often a question raised about the compatibility of Islam and democracy, and Islam and the separation of church and state. Now, I think one gets into difficult territory here, and difficult semantic territory, but you have just said you reject secularism. Well, reject secularism if secularism means an atheistic philosophy. I quite understand that. But if secularism means social and political space for all religious communities to coexist and operate in, I think that is a value that Muslims should be able to accept. That is just saying religions can exist side by side with a state that is neutral between them. That's what I think the word secularism means.
We certainly don't have any problem with religions living side by side, and of course the history of the Islamic State was one very much of this religious tolerance. There was no compulsion in the deen, meaning that no Muslim could ever force anyone to ascribe to his belief, and that is a clear-cut principle in Islam. The point that we're talking about is secularism as a political reality, in the sense that a divorcing of religion away from life's affairs, in the sense that the main principles upon which the society would be ruled or governed would be in accordance with man-made law as opposed to God's law. Now, the point is that in this country, clearly that is the reality in terms of that. Now, does that mean a Muslim cannot live here? No, it doesn't mean a Muslim cannot live here. Does it mean a Muslim would not be a good citizen? Of course not. But we beg to differ because we carry a different ideology or a different belief system and a different conception of politics that in no way should be seen as a restriction upon Muslims living a normal day-to-day life with respect for the rules and laws here, because I don't see any conflict with that. But to assign that we should, like Christians have adopted, a reformation in which they have left the principle of the Christian rule, is not something that Muslims would ascribe to.
But of course, just if Christians hadn't done that, we'd still be having religious wars as we had, at the start of the second millennium. I mean, part of the origins of this word secularism, which it's interesting, by the way, in America, the same criticism of secularism is leveled by the Christian right. I mean, I have been on the radio and told, well, you practice secular humanism. And I say, what is that? It's your religion. I say, well, actually, I'm Jewish. I don't practice Judaism, but culturally I'm Jewish. And the truth is that at its heart, the historical process that created this secular society came out of religious wars, both within Christianity and wars against Islam. And the idea was that eventually, after centuries of bloodshed, people got to the point where they said, we can't kill each other over belief. We make this a private space, and we can create and the society evolves. It was not created and then imposed. I mean, it evolved. And what happens then is that you have the possibility of a city like London, a nation like Britain, where you have an enormous influx of people in the space of 20 years, and until recently, comparatively little violence about it, because people are given the private space to practice their faith.
Yeah, I'm rather surprised at what Mr. Harwood has said, and I think it is a bit of a problem how he put it, because he said as Christians had given up the right to rule according to Christian laws. I would not want to go back to the 18th century in some parts of Europe where bishops made the law. I mean, Salzburg was virtually a theocracy in the 18th century when Mozart lived there. Laws were Christian laws and made by an archbishop. I believe that it is in the interest of all of us that there should be a separation of religion and state, that the state should be neutral. That is the way in which communities can live side by side, can tolerate each other, and to express the contrary views to, I think, imply that laws should not distinguish between religions, and that we ought to have laws that stem from one religion. Now, I don't think that that is necessarily the consequences of Islam, and what has happened in Turkey, what Sistani argues for in Iraq, makes me think that you can have a separation of religion and state even when you are a Muslim.
There's a gentleman in the back who's been waiting a while. No, you're the one. Something has gone through my brain, as it occasionally does while listening to all this conversation. Because Islam, we discuss it, I mean, it's your faith, or most of the people in this room's faith, but it is also, through Hizb ut-Tahrir, it's a political party, seeks to, in a sense, redraw the map of the world, or a significant part of the world, and eliminate national boundaries that have grown up over centuries, a millennium, in fact. So we have to talk about Islam as a political entity as well. And what I'd be curious to know, because Jamal, like many people, says, we Muslims, and in saying we Muslims, indicates that there's just one strain of thought in Islam, in how it's practiced and how it's meant to be in the modern world. Is it possible that the bombs of September, I come from America, I said September, I meant, of July 7th, open up the possibility for a plurality within the Ummah? Is it possible that there are many strands of political thought? I'd be very curious, as someone who's not part of the community, to hear if people feel that they can disagree with Jamal about what Islam is, or with the Sheikh about what Islam is, and can stand up as individuals and say, this is how I see Islam. Yes, you.
It's self-evident from everything we've discussed this evening that there is an absolutely clear connection between